In this tutorial, I'm going to show you another great way that you can experiment with colours and tones in Photoshop using something called adjustment layers. Now, this technique is really simple and straightforward, and it's a great way to experiment. So again, the benefits of doing a task like this is to learn how to use the adjustment layers in Photoshop and become more familiar with them. Understand how you can make improvements to your work through adjusting colours and tones. And also by experimenting with a range of these different effects that I'm showing you, and then presenting all of these different experimented adjustment layers in your portfolio of work, you will gain loads and loads of marks for doing things like this, because it shows that you are experimenting and exploring different ideas and different colour schemes, and the examiner really loves to see stuff like this. So it's a really simple technique that you can play around with and experiment with. It won't take you very long to do, but it will get you loads and loads of marks. Now, adjustment layers can be applied to any type of image. So I'm going to do it based on this drawing that I've got here, this digital drawing. But again, you could do this to photographs. You could take some hand-drawn or designed work and scan it into the computer and edit it in Photoshop as well. So you can do this with any type of design. So if we go over to my layers here, as you can see, this drawing is on lots of different layers. Now, just to make things a bit easier, I'm not going to merge all these layers, but I'm going to create a merged layer. So I'm going to show you the process of what you do there. So if you go to the little plus down here to create a new layer on top, then if you go up to image at the top and then go to apply image, this option box will come up. So that's the name of the image it's going to copy, which is the name of the document. It's going to merge it, that's fine. That's just the color channel, that's fine. It's going to merge all those colors. Blending mode, I want it on normal. So if it is on something else, just make sure you change it back to normal. And I do want it on 100% opacity. And then I'm going to press OK. And it's created now a layer with all of this merged together. So I'm not having to play around with different things. So I've got my images exactly the same as the one underneath, but it's all on one layer. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with adjustment layers. Now there are a couple of ways of using adjustment layers, but I'm going to show you these adjustments here. So if you've got standard essential layout, your adjustments will be here. If they're not here for whatever reason, if you go up to the top here, so up to the little arrow here, and click on Reset Essentials, what it will do is it will reset your computer back to basic essentials. So you'll have your adjustments, your libraries, your colors, your layers laid out just like it is here. If you don't want to readjust, if you've laid out your page how you like it and you don't want to change it, you can just go up to Window and then go to Adjustments. Mine's ticked because it's there. The ticked things are the things that are on my screen at the moment. So all these other things that are not ticked are not there. So if you ever want anything, like you want your brushes, you want brush settings, or you want characters, which is text, anything like that, histogram, it shows you what you've been doing throughout, each thing you've done throughout your work. So any of these that you want, just click on them and they will appear as a separate window. So that's how you get your adjustments up if you don't have them. So I'm not going to show you every single one. Some of them are really easy to use, like the first one I'll show you. But what I will show you is probably some of the better ones that require a little bit of teaching or showing how to use them. So this one's nice and easy. I would probably forget levels. I wouldn't do that. I will show you curves. And I'll show you one or two others, like color balance is quite nice, which are these ones here. If you hover over them, sometimes the name will come up, but some people prefer the symbols. I don't know, I tend to go straight to the symbols, but if you prefer to see the names, if you go down to the bottom of your layers, this circle that's half black and half white, if I click on there, except for these top three, brightness and contrast is exactly the same as that, and it will bring up your brightness and contrast options that I'll click on in a minute in the same way. Levels is there, that's the same as that. Curves next to it, curves, exposure, exposure. So all of these symbols are exactly the same as all of these here. So if you prefer to use the name, you can come down to the little circle, half black, half white, or if you prefer the little symbol, but they're exactly the same, okay? So if somebody says to you, use the curves, and you're like, what are the curves? You can just come here and find the curves, okay? That might be easier. But I'm just going to click on that one. And as you can see, when I clicked on it, it gave me a brand new layer, and it's called Brightness and Contrast. And Brightness and Contrast is the adjustment layer that I'm going to start with. So we've got a little symbol here, that's the adjustment, and this is the layer mask. And I'll talk to you about layer masks in a little while. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to up the brightness, or I'm going to lower the brightness. So you can see you can adjust it. So if you've got a picture that doesn't have a lot of contrast, or a lot of really darks and really lights, this is a really good way of increasing that contrast. This image actually does have a high contrast, so I wouldn't worry too much about it with this image, but sometimes it's a nice way of just giving your image a bit of oomph, or making it really sort of pop out or stand out just by increasing or lowering the contrast there. And if you're not sure, if you think, I'm not sure if it's better than the original, this little eye down here will allow you to hide it. So that's how it was before. And then I click on the eye, and that's how it is now. So if I click on the eye, you'll notice the eye disappears on the layer. That means it's not visible. You can just see the original. And then I click on the eye and it comes back. So you can sort of see before and after, which is useful sometimes to help you decide whether or not it looks good. So I'm just going to click on the X because I've finished with that now. And I'm going to hide that. If it looks terrible, I can just double click on here and I can adjust it some more. So I can adjust it, or I can just X that. I can just click on it and drag it to the dustbin as well. Okay, and get rid of it that way. So it doesn't affect the image underneath, it just adds a layer on top with the adjustment. So that's the brightness and contrast. Levels and curves do the same thing, but curves does it a lot better. So I never really use levels. If you click on curves, same thing. So a curves adjustment layer appears on top. And you've got this graph. And I'll talk to you about the RGB in a minute. So at the moment it's on RGB, which means it will adjust all of the colours. And if I was to click on here and sort of move this, you'll see it does a similar thing to the brightness and contrast. So if I did want to adjust the brightness and contrast is easy, it's just the two sliders, but I think curves does it a bit better. So you can go through and you can sort of adjust your curve like this by just moving elements up and down. Now if you want to get rid of a point like that, you just click and drag to get rid of it. So you can move around, you can take the edges, so as it goes up you can see it lightens, as it goes along it darkens. And the top bit, so this is the darks down here, and these are the highlights up here. So I can lighten the highlights, darken the highlights, or I can brighten or lighten the dark areas, or I can lighten the dark areas. So usually when I use the curves, I go from the corners because I think I quite like the high contrast sometimes it gives. And again, you can click on the little eye to see before and after and decide if you like it or not. Now what I usually do, I'm just going to put that back for a moment, just put that back. This little finger symbol here is quite good. If you click on there, what you can do is you can pick an area. So if I pick the lightest part of the picture, which is her skin, I can click and I can lower it to darken it. And if you look at the graph, it moves itself. So what I'm doing is it's almost like a custom. So you can move it up and down. So up for lighten, down for darken. So you can edit parts. So that's the lightest part. I can go to the darkest part now and do the same thing, and you can see on the graph how it's changing it, and you can see the image is adjusting as well. So you can adjust sort of different areas, but what it will do is it will adjust every part of the picture that's the same tone as this, the same light or darkness as this, not the same color. So if this is the same tone as here, for example, it'll probably change both if I move it up and down. Okay, so this is quite useful sometimes. If you want to increase your darks, you could go to a dark area and you could pull it down and it will darken your darks, or you can bring it up to lighten them. So that works quite well, and you can see it's making those adjustments on the curve for you. So that's one thing that you can do, and then let's see, is that better or not? Looks like, yeah, probably prefer it without. But I'm just sort of playing around just to show you. So if I want to get rid of these, I can just drag them off very easily. Now if you go up to the color channels, you can change the individual colors. So if I go to red, if I wanted to warm my picture up and add some warmth to it, I could bring this way, or if I wanted to add some coolness to it, add some blue to it, I could bring it down. So you can add red, or you can take red away. So everything above this line is adding red, everything below is taking it away. So the opposite to red in this instance is the blues. So you can move it up and down, or you can take let me just get rid of that dot, drag it off. You can take the highlights, the shadows, and I could add some coolness to it, and I could take the highlights at the top and I could add some warmth or some coolness, gives it a bit of contrast. If I add cool to the darks and warm to the lights, might just give it a bit more contrast, and then I can click on the eye to see how it looks. Do I prefer it or not? Okay, so that's mainly the curves. You can do that with all the channels, but I don't know, you can play around with it. There are these other ones here that you can use, that your darks, your mids and your lights, but the hand is much better. So these sort of, you can change the darks, mids or lights only, but the hand I think is a bit more effective. And then the pencil just allows you to plot your own course. I've never used that because I don't know, but if you've got if you know exactly what shape you want to create, you can use the pencil. But I don't know, play around with it and experiment and see what you think. So I'm going to close that to get rid of that, and there's my adjustment layer sitting on top. Let's have a look what else we'll have a look at. So you got exposure, that's more for photography if you have pictures over or underexposed, so I'm not going to use that. Vibrance, that just, you can increase the brightness of your image. Let me just hide that. You've got, these are quite good, these two here, and then that just changes it black and white. So if I click on hue saturation, what you can do is you can go through the color, sort of the color spectrum, and you can change the colors up quite easily. So you can just move along and around. You can change the saturation, so if it's really bright or not very bright, and then you can also change the lightness of it. Okay, so you can have also a play around with those effects as well if you want to really sort of experiment and play around with the color. Let me show you one other thing you can do. So let's say I wanted to adjust the wolf color but not her, so I play around with it. I'm going to ignore her for the minute, the fact she's purple. I'm just looking at my wolf colors and I'm just thinking about what color shall I make him. Let's go with some pinks. I can't remember what he was originally, blues. So let's say I want to make my wolf that color, okay, but I don't want her to be green. I only want to adjust the wolf. So I'm just going to close that to get rid of that. This is my what I've just been using. So I'm going to click on the layer mask this time. This is the layer mask. It's called a mask because you can hide parts of your image. So when it's white, it's not hiding anything. The whole effect, the whole adjustment layer is visible. So if I wanted to hide parts of the adjustment, like for example on her, I didn't want her green, I click on my mask to make sure it's selected. So I've got the little white sort of border around it. Then I go over to my brush and I want to have black and white. So at the moment it's white. White means I can see my effect. If I click on the black, what I can do is I can paint over, obviously choose your brush. So a soft round brush I want because I don't want a hard edge. And then you can make the brush as big or as small as you like using the square brackets on the keyboard. My opacity is a little bit low, so I'm going to make sure that's on 100%. And then I can just paint away the effect where I don't want it. So as you can see, I'm drawing with the brush tool over here. I'm painting black. I'm on this layer, on my adjustment layer, so I'm colouring on my adjustment layer, not on the actual picture. So as I paint black, it's masking out or hiding that effect on that part of the image. So I can just paint over the whole thing. I'm not using a tablet here, so it's going to be a little bit dodgy because I'm using a tracker pad on a laptop, but I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to, you know, make sure that I take that adjustment off anywhere that I don't want it. Okay, and I can look over here, I can see lots of little gaps there where I've missed, so I probably want to make my brush a bit bigger and just make sure I fill those in. And I'm just looking over here at this and just making sure I've got a good coverage. Now if you accidentally go over too much of your design, I'm not sure about his lips being green there, I don't know actually. If you've gone over too much and you decide actually I want it back, like for example I have just brought his lips back to being red, so if I thought, you know what, they were better green, or perhaps I preferred my sky with the colour, all I need to do is go over to my white and black, switch them over so I've got white on top this time instead of black, and then I can go back and just bring it back. So I'm painting now white back over the top of my my design. Another thing I can do, let's see, hair. So let's say I wanted a bit of that purple in her hair, so I can paint that back over the top of her hair. If I wanted the effect back a little bit, but you can see I've gone a bit too much there, so I'd obviously then go back to black. It's because I'm using a tracker pad, which isn't the best for drawing. So if you decide, you know, I want my wolf to be purple, but not that purple, it's too bright. So what you can do is you can go over to, my black, I'm on my black. You can put the opacity down. Let's make my brush a bit bigger. And it partially it gives you this, can you see it's kind of grayish, but it partially hides the adjustment. So you might decide, as I go over it more and more, because I'm on opacity, it will get blacker and blacker, as you can see over here. Now you might decide that actually I want some bits bluish, some bits purplish, to make it a bit more interesting, so just switch between the two, and then you can just sit and colour it however you like. So you can just play around with between these two and with the opacity as well. So moving the opacity up and down, which is whether on how see-through the mask is. So if it's grey, it's partially see-through. If it's black, it completely hides it, and if it's white, you can see the effect. So have an experiment also with editing your layer masks on your adjustment layers as well, so you can sort of see before and after there. So that's those ones I've just shown you. The colour balance is also quite interesting because it allows you to change the colours but in a slightly different way. So you can move these sliders and see what sort of colour effects you get, and then you can see before and after. Hide that, and then if you like it, you can keep it. And if you don't like it, you can put it in the bin. A couple more, let's see. Black and white, that just makes it black and white, and what you can do is you can adjust all the reds in the picture. So there's quite a lot of red on her cloak, so you can make the reds darker or lighter, and that's the same for all colours. Any yellow in the picture you can make darker or lighter. So this is quite a nice tool for making your image black and white. Okay, so you can just play around with those sliders until you get the effect that you like. So that was that one, black and white. Photo filter, that's okay, have a play around with it, it's really straightforward, you don't need me to show you. Gradient map's quite interesting. These ones are really easy, so if you want to play around with it, click on it and it's easy to understand what to do. I'll lastly show you the gradient map because it looks like it just does that, but actually you can edit it quite a lot. So if I click on this bar, I get options, and there's loads of folders full of colours. Now I don't know, I don't use these because I can't be bothered to go through all of these looking for the right one, but it might be useful if you've got a colour scheme, like for example if you think, oh, I definitely want pink, yellow and purple, but so you can go through a lot of these. So you can go through the greys, clouds, whatever clouds is, okay. You can go through these if you want to. Let's have a look at these ones. But personally, I prefer to put my own colours in. So let's go to the, so you just double click on the little square and you can choose a colour, and you can see it change as you choose your colour, which is useful. So you can, you can move around and decide what you think looks good. So it looked quite good dark, quite like that. And then you press OK. Then I can go to the next. I kind of like that colour scheme. Let's try that with a brighter. So double click on there. Let's try it a little brighter. No, that doesn't look good at all. Yeah, no, look better, lighter. So you can have a bit of a play around as you go. Press OK. Let's try this one. So you can sort of adjust that. You can add in more colours if you want. So let's say I want to move that up there. So you can see as you move it, it moves where the colours sit. You can add more colours in by clicking. So you just click where you've got a little hand. You can add as many as you like, or you can pull them off to get rid of them. And then let's go somewhere in the middle with that. So you can just play around quite easily, choosing your own colours that you want to use. You can choose a different colour and just play around and see what you like and what you think looks good. I'm just going to leave that there. Okay, so I'm going to press OK when I'm happy. And then I'll just close that. And then here's my gradient map, and there it is. And similarly, you can also click on the layer mask. You can go to the brush tool, you can choose black, and you can colour over bits that, if you want to sort of hide the effect in certain areas, you can do that. It's on low opacity, but yeah, so just, you can just have a bit of a play with these effects. Again, once you've done a range, try not to just do one, because that's a bit limiting. If you're doing this for more marks, well, firstly, it's good to do it just to learn how to use the tools. But if you're thinking, right, I want to get a lot of marks with this, then experiment with lots and show lots. So you could say, right, this is one design, I'm going to screenshot this and put it on my work. Then I'm going to do this one. Let's see what it looks like with that and that. That's kind of interesting. So, you just see what looks good. See how two of them look good, how it look together. Probably not that with that, maybe that with that. you know, and think, which one do you like? Well, I don't know, so I'll screenshot both of them, and you might have a page full of lots of different color experimentation, okay? And just make sure you give it the title, which is experimenting with adjustment layers, and then just briefly explain what you did. All right, have fun with that. Look forward to seeing what you do.